I think this is a topic that probably will rage on forever online and in forums and Facebook groups and everything else, and that is what's better between VMP and Whipple. I don't think there's a clear-cut right or wrong answer for this. I do have a unique perspective as myself and many other people. I'm not the only person to have done this, but I currently own a Whipple 03 Cobra, and my previous Cobra was a VMP Gen 3R 04 Terminator. So with that comes with a little bit of knowledge of both. I'm not just going to parrot what other people have said online for what's good about each one and what's bad, because when it comes to both of these blowers, there, in my opinion, is not a clear-cut winner due to some of the things that I like about both and some of the things that I dislike about both. So it comes down to which factors really affect you more personally. Now, to get one thing out of the way real early on, when it comes to the companies themselves, not the particular blower but the company, I will say that I prefer a Whipple only because their offering for the 0304 Cobra is more plentiful than VMP. With VMP, the only thing you have to choose from is the Gen 3R, which is a great blower, but they also had the 2.3 before that. Why they discontinued that blower, I don't have a good answer for that. I don't think a lot of people do either. But Whipple does offer the 2.3, the 2.9, and even bigger ones beyond that. So at least you have more variety and more choice with Whipple than you do with the VMP. So my perspective comes from my Torch Red 04 Terminator, which had the VMP Gen 3R, and my current Sonic Blue 03 with a 2.3 Whipple. I'll start with the VMP 04 Cobra because that was the one that I had first. And at the end, I'll give my perspectives on power and all that stuff for what I think, which one potentially makes more power, but that's really subjective. It's just opinion based on my part, but I'll put that at the end after comparing both blowers against each other. As far as the Gen 3R with the VMP, the one negative that I really don't like about that blower is the fact that it is a much wider blower, and due to that you have to bang the coolant crossover tube in order for it to fit, and that is a bit of a problem. It's not difficult to do, but it's the issue of taking an OEM crossover tube and banging the hell out of it so that the blower fits is the whole issue. You really shouldn't have to do that. I don't know if I don't think VMP could have done anything different. The case is the size of the case. They probably couldn't have made it smaller so that it would have fit. It probably wasn't an option. So you're stuck with having to bang the coolant crossover tube. What VMP should have done was offer a solution for that with a different tube that would have fit or something to go along with the kit, so that you're not forced with either looking for a coolant crossover delete or banging your stock OEM tube up. So that's one of the negatives with the VMP. The second negative with the VMP is if you buy the kit itself, it comes with the throttle body. And the throttle body absolutely sucks. At least it did during the time when I bought mine, which was back in 2021 time frame. I can't speak on if the company has changed throttle bodies, if they fixed the issue, but that throttle body sticking shut was a massive problem on mine. Other people have had varying results with fixes for it and varying degrees of how bad it stuck, but mine was quite bad, to the point of where the car wasn't fun to drive at low speed because the throttle body blade stuck so much that it was just really, really problematic. Now, the things that I really liked about the VMP, even over the Whipple 2.3 or Whipple 2.9 or any Whipple out there, I like the styling of the VMP more. I like the VMP plaque on the top that they have with their, I guess it's like a Superman type symbol, the VMP logo, that's the VMP logo with VMP lettering on the top, and just the style of the blower itself. I think it's more visually appealing than the VMP. I mean, more visually appealing than the Whipple. So There's that part that I like more. The other factor that I like more, which is absolutely huge, which I'm going to repeat as far as a negative on the Whipple, but one of the huge positives with the VMP is the removable elbow that it has. Just like the stock Eden, it has a removable elbow, which makes doing any kind of servicing on the passenger side of the engine, either with the ignition coil covers or the cam cover or spark plugs or anything like that, it's so much more easily accessible with the removable elbow versus having the solid unit that the Whipple has on theirs. Now if we move over to the Whipple 2.3, I can't speak in terms of the 2.9. I've never owned a 2.9, but the 2.3 is a very popular blower. A lot of people have it. A lot of people are really happy with it, you know, myself included. One of the positives over the VMP is you don't have to bang the coolant crossover tube. The 2.3 fits just fine, along with the Whipple 2.9, so that's not an issue with the Whipples as compared to the VMP. If it has to do with the root style blower compared to the twin screw, I'm not sure how that affects the case and how big it has to be, but with the Whipple 2.9, which is bigger than a VMP Gen 3R, their case fits just fine without having to bang the coolant crossover tube, so that's one huge point. The other part that's a negative, which I mentioned that I would bring up again, is it does not have a removable elbow. It's an absolute pain to have to deal with changing anything on the passenger side of the engine. I dread when it comes to doing spark plugs or anything. It's almost like you have, I know there are ways to get around this stuff with like contraptions of extensions and all kinds of stuff to get to the spark plugs out and to do other things, but it's almost like as if you have to remove the blower to do a lot of stuff that involves that side of the engine, which not ideal, and there are ways around it, but it just makes everything more complicated. It's not necessary. One positive for both blowers is the pulley change is extremely easy. Just a few bolts to hold the pulley on, undo those, new pulley on, and that's, you know, it doesn't get much simpler than that as far as the pulley small. You don't have to deal with a hub or pressing the pulley off like on the stock Eden. It's so much easier to deal with. As far as the power difference between the two, I'll have to put up both the dyno graphs from both. I'll put each of them up and label which one you're looking at. Both of these are extremely, extremely close. The VMP made 676 and the Whipple 2.3 made 658. We'll call it 660 for rounding off purposes, so the yard did, but that doesn't tell the whole story. When the VMP was first dynoed, the thing pulled over 700 on its first pull. Obviously the tuner could not leave it at that power range on 93 octane, so I had a lot of timing poured in, and the car settled at a safe number and timing level at 676. So that's where that blower stayed in that setup running on 93 octane. Now, can I reach that number with the 2.3? Absolutely you can, but whether mine does it or not is another story, because I do have another factor to consider, which is that dyno graph that I showed for the 2.3. I ran a fuel pump at 4,000 RPM. I've mentioned in previous videos that this is dragged on all summer long, that it's getting, I have the 4 hat and the pumps to go in it to correct the fueling issue of running out of fuel pump at 4,000 RPMs. But the shop was backed up for a very, very long time this summer, which is okay with me. I'm able to drive the car this summer and enjoy it, which is all I want. It's not tied up at a shop all summer long like it was at that rip-off fucking con artist that I had the car at before. So I'm grateful just to have the car and being able to drive it. He has had enough free time currently where I can bring the car down and get the fuel pump situation resolved and get the custom harness made for the fuel pumps going in it. So the big issue is actually getting the car down there. With everything going on right now, which I won't elaborate on, It's not that my plate's full, it's that my plate's overflowing. And for me to be able to get the car down there right now is just really, really tough. As far as when that's happening, it will be before it goes up for the winter. I will get it down there, it will get back to the dyno, and we will see what this puts out with the Whipple 2.3, with the setup that it has, the Kooks long tubes, a 6-pound lower, and what it puts down once the fueling situation is resolved. It would be much easier if I was just able to get the harness and I could put it in myself, but it's custom made and it's not plug and play, and I'm not going to hack into the fuel pressure driver module wiring to try to figure it out or try to make it work. Cobra Dan has done this many times. It's not a big deal, so I'm going to have him do that. While the car is there, I'm going to also try and get the exhaust finished. What I mean by that is the cats put on and the boiler stingers put on. I've had the boiler stingers for months now. I could have put them on, but I'm really apprehensive about running the car with no cats and boiler stingers on it. I think it's going to be a bit much, and I really don't want to do that. So I figure when I take it down there, it would be the best time to get that done. And also, I'll probably have him throw on a set of springs while it's there, just because it's too low right now. I do have the H&R Sports, and I want to put the H&R Race ones in. So with all things considered, in my own opinion, with the setups on each car, granted the setups weren't the same, this car has an advantage of a 6-pound lower and long tubes where the other car didn't, but the other car had a bigger blower where this one doesn't. But with all that being said, I think this setup has the potential to make as much, if not more, than what the VMP setup did on my other Cobra. Now I'm still going to be limited to what I can do on 93 octane, so it's not like I'm running both on E85 and pushing the blower to as far as it will go with the pulley setup for the amount of power that each one will make. I think you can push the VMP harder to make more power than the 2.3, but in the constraints of what I had for a setup for that car and what this one is set up as, I believe my Whippled 03 Cobra, this one, will probably make more power than the VMP one did. As far as how both of these blowers feel, I've read on SVTP, it was either there or on some of the forums, that people have said they've had the 2.3, they've bought the 2.9, and they wish they had stayed with the 2.3. A lot of that has to do with, I'm not saying the 2.9 doesn't hit hard. Of course it hits hard, it's a big blower. But I just think it doesn't quite hit as hard down low from what other people have said. Like I said, I'm not speaking from experience, I'm going from what other people have said regarding the 2.9. And it just seems as though the 2.3 is a much more suitable blower as it hits very hard down low. Does it hit harder than the VMP Gen 3R? It's tough to say because it had been so long since I drove the VMP car versus this one when the Whipple finally went on that it was quite a pretty decent separation in time. So it's really hard to say that this blower pulls harder than this one down below. But you can see from the graphs, and I'll throw them up again, that both of these are making absolutely ridiculous amounts of torque down low. And I think it's more of a placebo effect of whether you think one pulls harder than the other. But I will not say that the Gen 3R pulls significantly harder than the 2.3 Whipple. I think they're both extremely equal and even. I don't think you can really put one above the other in that aspect. Now, with all things considered, which blower would I really want the most now that I've had both? I've often said in past videos that the blower I want the most is a VMP 2.3. And My opinion on that really hasn't changed a whole lot, other than the fact that the Gen 2 2.3 Whipple is a more efficient blower than that 2.3. Now, I know people have made ridiculous friggin' numbers on the 2.3, and I'm not saying that it's not a good blower. It won't make big numbers, because it will, and it has. But I think for my setup, if I were to replace this and put on a 2.3 VMP, I don't think it's going to make the same amount of power, just because the Gen 2 2.3 Whipple just has more updates to it. It's a more advanced blower as far as its efficiency. So I think in that aspect it makes more power. Now, one thing I didn't touch on, those of you that made it to the end, one advantage to the 2.3 Whipple, which it doesn't come as a kit. One advantage with the 2.3 I didn't mention was that it doesn't come as a kit, so you're not getting whatever throttle body that they throw in. I'm running the LFP throttle body on this, which is tons of times better than that crap piece that VMP threw in with their blower. So that makes it really hard when choosing between the two, because you spend all this money on the VMP kit only to have to replace the friggin' throttle body with something that's better and spending more money. So if the VMP Gen 3R came with a better throttle body, I would say that's a better pick between the two. And maybe they fixed that by now. This is a couple years later. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But if they haven't fixed that issue with the stick and throttle body, I would not buy a VMP Gen 3R again. Not unless I could get it as just a blower itself without the kit, because then you have to buy the 5-inch intake, and it's just a whole big thing. You can't just buy the blower in the kit without the throttle body with it. So you suck paying all this money with the throttle body you're not going to want to use, and spending more money to buy another throttle body. So as much of a pain in the ass that it is to do all the future maintenance on this car with the Whipple on there, I still think it's a better option, because you can pick whatever throttle body that you want, and the Lightning Force Performance one on this is like friggin' butter. It is so good. It doesn't stick at all. There's no throttle hang up or anything like that. It's a friggin' great throttle body to have. So as you can see, both of them have their ups and their downs. Neither one of them is the perfect blower and the perfect choice. From what I've seen from both, there's hang-ups on both. Things that they could have done better, things that they did wrong. So there's that. But both of these are still great blowers. If some of my things seem nitpicky, to some people it might, but that's just my honest opinion for things that I could think of when it comes to both of these blowers and their good and their bad points. If there's anything else you'd like to add that I perhaps missed, for those of you that have more experience with each blower, I would like to see that down in the comments. Or if you have any other questions about each blower, I'll be happy to answer that to the best of my ability. I'm not an expert on either one of these, but I just have some experience with both, so it's kind of nice to be able to speak from that perspective. If you did make it this far in the video, make sure to leave it a like. There will be more Cobra stuff coming up. I'm going to try to stay on somewhat of a regular upload again. I've missed a couple weeks. Like I put at the note at the end of the last video, there is some stuff family related going on, and there may be weeks where you guys don't see videos. I appreciate those that reached out and expressed their you know, hopefully things get better for me type comments, and they will. It's just a really rough time right now, so there may be a couple weeks where there are not uploads, but the channel's not going anywhere. There'll still be future content, and I will have a dyno video for this with this setup by the end of the summer. It's just taking a little bit longer than I initially thought it did. But if you are new, the sub button is down below, and above all else, thanks for watching.